Hello, class. My name is Miss Gabby, and today we will be learning about compare and contrast. So, our objective for today is by the end of this lesson, students will be able to compare and contrast two different versions of the Three Little Pigs by identifying similarities and differences through a Venn diagram. So, comparing and contrasting is an important skill within reading. But what exactly is compare and contrast? Well, let's start by defining comparing and contrasting. So, comparing is to tell what is alike or the same between two or more things. And contrasting is to tell what is different between two or more things. So, what is comparing? Yeah, comparing is to just tell about the things that are similar, that they're the same, while contrasting is what? Yeah, the things that are different about the two items or stories. Now, typically we use a Venn diagram to help us organize our information better. So on the left side and on the right side, we write information about each item or story. While in the middle, where the circles overlap, we write about what is similar or alike or the same between two stories or items. So, what do we put in the middle, class? Yeah, just characteristics or just things that they have in common. So, we're going to practice as a class. So, I need you to put on your thinking caps. Give yourself a couple minutes to think about what makes an apple and an orange similar? What kind of characteristics or things do they have in common that we could write in the middle? Once you have a couple of ideas, turn to your partner and share. Maybe um, you guys share one answer. Raise your hand if you would like to volunteer. Yes, so both apples and oranges are fruits. Good job. What else? Yes, they both have seeds. What else? Fantastic. They grow on trees. Anybody else? Yes, you can eat both of them. That's right as well. Okay, so now I'm going to need you guys to think just about the apple for a second. What makes an apple different than an orange? Once you're ready, give me a thumbs up. All right, what makes an apple different than an orange? Yes, it is red. Good job. Yes, it has smooth skin compared to an orange. Yes, an apple tends to be more sweet than an orange. What about an orange? What makes an orange different than an apple? Of course, an orange is the color orange. It has bumpy skin or it has like a bumpy peel. They tend to be a little bit more sour. And one more. Yes. Yeah, so you can't eat the peel of an orange, but you can eat the peel or the skin of an apple. Good job, everyone. So, this is what we're going to be doing now, but with stories. Are you guys excited? Yeah, so do you remember yesterday we read The Three Little Pigs by Patricia Sherbert, and we went over some of the story elements from this story. Well, today we're going to be reading another version of The Three Little Pigs. So let's get started. The true story of the Three Little Pigs. Everyone knows the story of the Three Little Pigs, or at least they think they do. But I'll let you in on a little secret. Nobody knows the real story because no one has ever heard my side of the story. All right, we're going to pause really quickly. I want you to infer or guess, who do you think is telling this story? From whose point of view or perspective is this story in? Yes, the wolf. The wolf is telling us the story. Great job. I'm the wolf, Alexander T. Wolf. You can call me Al. I don't know how the big bad wolf thing got started, but it's all wrong. Maybe it's because of our diet. Hey, it's not my fault we eat cute little animals like bunnies and sheep and pigs. That's just the way we are. If cheeseburgers were cute, folks would probably think you were big and bad too. But like I was saying, the whole big bad wolf thing is all wrong. The real story is about a sneeze and a cup of sugar. This is the real story. Way back in once upon a time, I was making a birthday cake for my dear old granny. I had a terrible sneezing cold. I ran out of sugar. So I walked down the street to ask my neighbor for a cup of sugar. Now, this neighbor was a pig, and he wasn't too bright either. He had built his whole house out of straw. Can you believe it? I mean, who in his right mind builds a house out of straw? So, of course, the minute I knocked, the door fell right in. And I didn't just want to walk into someone else's house, so I called, little pig, are you in? No answer. I was just about to go home without my cup of sugar for my dear old granny's birthday cake, and that's when my nose started to itch. I felt a sneeze coming on. Well, I buffed and I snuffed. Achoo! And I sneezed a great sneeze. And you know what? The whole straw house fell down. Right in the middle of the pile of straw was the first little pig, dead as a doornail. He had been home the whole time. It seemed like a shame to leave a perfectly good dinner lying there in the straw, so I ate it up. Think of it as a big cheeseburger just lying there. I was feeling a little bit better, but I didn't have my cup of sugar, so I went to the next door neighbor's house. This neighbor was the first little pig's brother. He was a little smarter, but not much. He had built his house out of sticks. I rang the bell on the stick house. Nobody answered. I called, Mr. Pig, are you in? He yelled back, Go away, Wolf. You can't come in. I'm shaving the hairs on my chinny chin. I had just grabbed the doorknob when I felt another sneeze coming on. I buffed and I snuffed and I tried to cover my mouth, but achoo! I sneezed a great sneeze. And you're not going to believe it, but this guy's house fell in just like his brother's. When the dust cleared, there was the second little pig, dead as a doorknob. Wolf's honor. Now you know food will spoil if you just leave it out in the open, so I did the only right thing there was to do. I had dinner again. Think of it as a second helping. I was getting awfully full, but my cold was feeling a little bit better, and I still didn't have that cup of sugar for my dear old granny's birthday cake. So I went to the next house. This guy was the first and second little pig's brother. He must have been the brains of the family. He had built his house of bricks. I knocked on the brick house. No answer. I called, Mr. Pig, are you in? And do you know what this rude little porker answered? Get out of here, Wolf. Don't bother me again. Talk about impolite. He probably had a whole sack full of sugar, and he wouldn't even give me one little cup for my dear sweet old granny's birthday cake. What a pig! I was just about to go home and maybe make a nice birthday card instead of a cake when I felt my cold coming on. I huffed and I snuffed and I sneezed once again. Achoo! Then the third little pig yelled, And your old granny can sit on a pin. Now, I'm usually a pretty calm fellow, but when somebody talks about my granny like that, I go a little bit crazy. When the cops drove up, of course I was trying to break down the little pig's door, and the whole time I was buffing and puffing and sneezing and making a real scene. And the rest, as they say, is history. The news reporters found out about the two pigs I had for dinner. They figured a sick guy going in to borrow a cup of sugar didn't sound very exciting. So they jazzed up the story with all that huff and puff and blow your house down, and they made me the big bad wolf. That's it. That's the real story. I was framed. But maybe you could loan me a cup of sugar? The end. So what did we think about this story in comparison to the other story we read yesterday? Raise your hand if you like this story better. Raise your hand if you like the story we read yesterday better. Good. Okay, I see a lot of us like this story better. Why? Yeah, it's really interesting to see how the wolf tells his story because we never hear the wolf side, right? Well, we are going to use our Venn diagram to compare the two stories. So I need you to partner up and work independently while I walk around and see if everyone is doing what they're supposed to be doing. Alrighty, so I need you guys to look over here and we are going to start filling out this Venn diagram as a class. So I want us to first fill out the things that both of these stories have in common or that are the same, the things that stay the same in both stories. So the first thing is, of course, there's a big bad wolf in both of the stories, but in the story that we read today, he's saying he wasn't big and bad. So we could just put just a wolf. There's a wolf in the story. Good. There's also three little pigs still in both stories. Yes, there's a straw house, a stick house, and a brick house in all three stories. One more. Yes, good job. So the brick house didn't fall down in either of these stories. They both lasted, even though the wolf was huffing and puffing. All right, now we're going to do the things that are only happened in the Three Little Pigs that didn't happen in the true story of the Three Little Pigs. Good. The wolf only wanted a cup of sugar. What else happened in the true story of the Three Little Pigs that did not happen in the original story of the Three Little Pigs? Yeah, the first and the second pig die in this story, but in the story that we read yesterday, all three pigs still lived, and they lived happily ever after. Yeah, so the wolf has a cold and blows down the houses on accident in the story that we read today. Yeah, and in this story, the wolf goes to jail. The cops come and he gets arrested and they take him to jail. And last but not least, I know we talked about this earlier. This story that we read today is told from the wolf's perspective. So the wolf is telling his story. What about in the story, The Three Little Pigs that we read yesterday? Yeah, the wolf wanted to eat the pigs in this story. In the one that we read today, he claims he only wanted a cup of sugar. Like we said, all of the three pigs survive in the Three Little Pigs book that we read yesterday, but in this story that we read today, the first and the second little pig die. Yeah, so in the story that we read yesterday, the wolf huffs and puffs on purpose. And like we said, the wolf falls in the pot of boiling water and then he disappears and the pigs live happily ever after. And in the story that we read yesterday, it's told from the Three Little Pigs perspective. So we've filled out our Venn diagram. You guys did fantastic. You were able to tell me the differences between both of the two books and the similarities, what was the same between the two books. So let's review what we learned. Today we learned how to compare and contrast using a Venn diagram. This is a skill will help you understand stories better by looking at how they are alike and different. So what we're going to do for our homework or our independent practice is we're going to compare the two stories, but now we're going to break it down to the story elements that we reviewed yesterday. So the setting from yesterday's book and the setting from today's book, the characters from yesterday's book and the characters from today's book, and the events and the theme. So we're combining what we learned yesterday and today for our independent practice. Thank you so much, and I hope you learned all about comparing and contrasting.